السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد سيدنا والآخرين. مدد يا رسول مدد يا سادات أصحاب الجسر ما شاء الله فاز أحسن محمد الحقاني مدد طريقاتنا والصحبة والخير في الجميع. إن الله يحب الذين يقاتلون في سبيله صفا كأنهم بنيان مرصوص. صدق الله العظيم. Allah Azze ve Celle onun yolunda olanlar düzgün olsunlar diyor.
Allah Almighty describes those who follow His way as those who are in a proper and orderly manner.
Düzgün olmayan saflar Allah'ın sevmediği.
And Allah Almighty does not like the rows to be improper. Allah Almighty does not like the rows to be disorderly.
Sevdiği, Allah sevdiği düzgün nizam intizam içinde olan
Allah Almighty likes everything to be in a proper and orderly manner.
İnsanlar, müminler.
And Allah Almighty wants the believers to be in a structured, orderly and proper manner.
Her biri kendi kafasına göre olunca o vakit nizam intizamdan çıkmış oluyor.
However, when people act based on their own likings and based on their own thoughts, then one may not preserve the order, and things turn disorderly and become, when people act based on their own likings, things become disorderly and improper.
Karışıklık oluyor.
When people act based on their own likings, things get messed up.
Allah Azze ve Celle ondan sonra onları nizam intizama sokacak insan gönderiyor ki.
And that is exactly when Allah Almighty thereupon sends forces and people to put them back into order.
Zorla da yapabiliyorlar.
And it may happen that if people do not act properly and do not act orderly, that Allah Almighty may send those who put them back to order. And it may happen that they are tasked to put them back to order by force.
Şimdi Müslümanlar Baba derdi bir hacca giderken aşağıda insanlar birbirini iterek, itişerek.
And Mawlana Shaykh Nazim once described his Hajj, and he described how he experienced people dragging and pulling others.
Tavaf eder, bazıları sabreder, bazıları bağırarak, bazıları şey.
And he described how people in a disorderly manner dragged and pulled others, pushed others. There were some who were patient with what they experienced, while there were others who shouted back.
Halbuki nizam yapsalar çok güzel olacak.
But if people did things properly and orderly, in an organized and structured manner, then everything would be beautiful.
Ondan sonra tecelliyle, keşifle şey yaptılar, daha sonra beraber oldu o vakit. Yukarıya bak demiş.
And Mawlana Shaykh Nazim described that he did that Hajj together with Grand Shaykh Mawlana Shaykh Abdullah Dastani, and at that moment Grand Shaykh Mawlana Shaykh Abdullah Dastani said to Mawlana Shaykh Nazim, "Look up."
Bakmış o yukarıda evliyalar, melekler falan ta o aynı Kabe'nin üstü aynı tecelli olarak devam ediyor.
And Mawlana Shaykh Nazim, upon his Shaykh's order, looked up, and through manifestation, he thereupon perceived how in the heavens they were the awliyas, there were the angels, there were the pure ones who performed tawaf too. And the way they performed their tawaf was in an orderly, structured and organized manner.
Orada kaç tane üst üste tavaf eden ama
And when he looked up, it was not only one layer, but multiple layers in the heavens where the saints and the angels performed tawaf.
öyle güzel tavaf ediyorlar, su gibi.
And Mawlana Shaykh Nazm described that they were performing tawaf in such a beautiful and orderly manner. It was so calm, like flowing water.
Tavaf ediyorlar, Allah'ı zikrediyorlar.
They were making tawaf in an orderly manner, as calmly as flowing water, and praising Allah Almighty and making tasbih.
Sessiz, tesbihatla, şeyle güzel olarak o mübarekler şey yapıyor.
Those holy ones, those blessed ones, were performing the tawaf in a calm, orderly and beautiful manner.
Bir aşağıya gene baktım. Gene aşağı bakınca aynı şekilde.
And then Mawlana Shaykh Abdullah Dastan said to Mawlana Shaykh Nazm, look down again. And then Mawlana Shaykh Nazm looked around, and he was seeing again people dragging and pulling and pushing others.
Bağırma, çağırma, bir ittirme, kalktırma. Onun için
people were shouting, they were pulling and pushing others in a disorderly manner.
Allah Azze ve Celle insanlara yola soksun diye onlara da insanlar gönderiyor.
And that is why Allah Almighty sends people in order to put people back to order.
Ona da insanlar hoşlarına gitmiyor.
And of course people, they don't like others to tell them what to do. They don't like others to put them into order.
Hoşlarına gitmezsen, düzgün olsan Allah Azze ve Celle onu göndermeyecek.
But if you were acting properly and in an orderly manner, then Allah Almighty would not send those to put you back into order.
İşte hacdaydık, dün geldik. Oradaki yani insan nankör olmaması lazım.
And we participated in the Hajj and returned yesterday. And when one performs the Hajj, one must not be ungrateful. One must appreciate the Hajj.
Nankör insan iyi insan değil.
A person who's ungrateful is not a good person.
Mümin değil, güzel insan, Müslüman olmaz.
A believer, a mu'min, a Muslim cannot be ungrateful and should not be ungrateful.
Oradaki Allah şimdi oraya verdi, onların eline teslim etti. Hicaz, Kabe, Mekke, Medine. Onlar bize layık olan yani iyilikle.
And one must not be ungrateful for the happenings during the Hajj, no matter what happens. And one must accept those who are in authority and those who have the say there. And one must not blame them, but say and accept them that they who have authority over the lands of Hijaz and over the Kaaba, they are there because of us.
Gelmeyiz. Onun için o kadar asker, polis filan koyuyorlar ki doğru dürüst yapsın. Müslümanlar
One must say that they are there because we do not act properly. We do not act orderly. And to put us into order, Allah Almighty have given them authority and has tasked them to put us into order because we did not act properly.
Şey yapsaydı onlara ihtiyaç olmazdı. Herkes şey yapardı.
And therefore one must blame oneself and say, if I were acting properly and orderly, then Allah Almighty would not have put those in authority there in order to put us into order.
Onların bazı insanlar nefislerine ağır geliyor. Ağır gelmesin.
And people, they don't like those forces, the police there and those who have authority, and they don't like them to tell what to do. And their egos doesn't like to be told what to do. But one must accept that.
Yani nefsin daha şeyine mustahaktır.
Your ego deserves those directions, and your ego deserves even more.
Belki daha sana dövmeden adamlar yol gösteriyor.
Those people there, they don't beat you up. They are there showing you the way.
Yardımcı oluyor.
They try to be helpful.
Onun için insan kimsede ayıp, kusur bakmasın.
Therefore, one should not look for the mistakes and faults in others, and one should not blame others.
Kusur, ayıp kendinizdedir, bizdedir.
Shame on yourself. One should always blame oneself.
Kusur, ayıp bizdedir.
It's not the others who do mistakes and faults. It's oneself, and one should blame oneself.
Onun için bu da nankörlük yapmamak lazım.
And this too means to not be ungrateful. If you blame others, then you are not grateful.
Onu Allah Azze ve Celle koymuş.
You must know that it is Him, Allah Almighty, who put those there in authority.
Sana hizmet ediyor.
And He, Almighty Allah, put them there to serve you.
Senin için şey yapıyor. Sen doğru dürüst yapsaydın, kendin bencillik yapmayıp da kardeşin, Müslüman kardeşle senin gibi istifade edecek diye şey yapsan, o vakit hiç ihtiyaç olmazdı.
If you did things properly and orderly, there would be no need for such forces there. But people act egoistically. They do not respect the rights of others, and they do not give priority to others so that others may benefit, but all people are only interested to benefit themselves.
İhtiyaç var ki sen birisi sırf kendisi için olunca her şey kaos oluyor.
And since people act egoistically only for their self-interest, Allah Almighty has put those forces there to put things into order. And because if people act egoistically just for their self-interest, there's no order, there's chaos.
Onun için nefsini ettirmek için Allah bazı şeyler musahhar oluyor.
And when people act egoistically, Allah Almighty makes things to happen in order to put boundaries to your ego.
Hizmetine koyuyor.
And then Allah Almighty puts those in authority into the service there in order to put boundaries to your ego.
O hizmette insanların ihtiyacına göre oluyor.
And those restrictions and boundaries Allah Almighty puts onto you, whether it's through those forces at the Kaaba or in other means, is based on to what extent people follow their egos and to what extent people do not act properly.
Dediğimiz gibi o yukarıda tavaf eden mübarekler, onlara hiç ne polis gerekiyor, ne zabıta.
The holy ones who perform their tawaf in the layers of the skies, they are not in need of any police. They are not in need of any force to put them into order.
Asker aşağıdakilerine her şey gerekiyor.
There are no soldiers to put restraint on them. However, the people who perform their tawaf on the ground of the earth, as they follow their egos and are only interested in their self, they need to be put in restraint and put into boundaries through police forces, through soldiers, and they deserve everything and in order to act properly.
Onun için Allah yardım etsin.
May Allah Almighty help us.
Allah ıslah eylesin.
And may Allah Almighty guide people to the better.
Çünkü orada kazanılan sevapları kaybetmeden, hiç olmasa bir kısmını kaybetmeden gelmek lazım.
And when one performs Hajj, one must be very careful to not lose the rewards one has collected, and one should at least try to preserve a portion of the rewards one has obtained.
Çok büyük sevaplar var orada. 100.000, her bir şeyin 100.000 katıdır.
And there are great rewards to be obtained. Every deed is multiplied by 100,000.
Ama onunla yapılan günahlar da yine aynı şekilde.
But as every good deed is multiplied and rewarded by 100,000, the same applies to when somebody does something wrong.
Derken o yarısıyla az bir şeyinden bile gelen insan büyük bir kazançla gelmiş oluyor.
Therefore, it may easily occur that one nullifies all the good deeds and rewards one has collected through bad deeds. Therefore, it is a great achievement and a great attainment if one returns, having preserved at least a portion, half of the rewards, or even just a fraction of the rewards one has obtained during the Hajj. Even if one only maintains a portion of that, that is still a great gain.
Allah o kazançları elimizden almasın inşallah.
May Allah Almighty not deprive us of those rewards.
Allah bize hikmet versin.
May Allah Almighty grant us wisdom.
Güzellik versin inşallah.
May Allah Almighty give us beauty.
Ve minallah tevfik. El Fatiha.